that's, you know, a gazillion years of trial and error. But yeah, all right. Should do something with this pen down here. And the sketch. Don't worry about it too much. Got a coat. Well, it's supposed to be mysterious. Fog, or maybe tall grass. That's really good. Especially if you're going to do a ballpoint pen, grass is great. Painting. That damn hand. Do some weird things that they made.
Is there any if you put a lot of emphasis on the composition of each page, when do you think that? When do you take consideration of what you want the page to look like?
Composition is the biggest. Well, storytelling is first. Composition is second for me. When I make up a story, I thumbnail. Even if I'm actually writing a story for somebody else, I thumbnail the story so I know I can get what I need done on that particular page. And for pacing, I need to know, okay, I'm going to cut from this to this, we'll cut away to a bird because that was a quiet moment. I like that little panel where the bird was thinking. And then I would set up things like, okay, I want the big surprise to come on the next page, so you design it so at the bottom of this page, something's about to happen, and then you turn the you know. So also when I thumbnail my pages, I always thumbnail 2 pages facing each other as they would fall in the comic. So I can see the rhythm, I think, in 2-page sequences. But then, yeah, then it becomes all about composition within the panels. And again, that's all done in the thumbnail stage.
You said composition within the panels. What about within the larger page? What kind of process occurs when you're doing that?
That's that super intuitive thing where it's really difficult to explain how I do it. I wouldn't even know where to start here. If you look through some of the time, we show some of my pages, and I can go through them and you know, at the time I might not really know what I was doing, but looking back at them, I go, oh, you know why I did that? You know, it's intuitive. I mean, certain things like putting a panel across the middle of a page, something like that will stop the eye. If you're running a sequence of panels, you're moving along, especially if the panels are all the same size, the figures in the panels are the same size, you're just reading. But you put a panel, slap a panel across horizontal, and it's just like when you're at the grocery store, you put that bar down, keep your groceries from the other guy's groceries. It stops the eye. So there are various things, different sizes of panels, certainly different sizes of figure within a panel. These things can speed up and, you know, slow down your storytelling.
What is your use of vertical panels coming in?
The question is, where does the use of vertical panels come in?
You seem to use quite a few of those.
I don't know. Again, I think it all depends on the job. I love doing something other than just that grid of panels. One thing I don't do is just say, ooh, I need some crazy stuff going on, so it's not boring. You know, I always do it. I mean, not necessarily to bash some of that image comics kind of stuff, but I always saw a lot of storytelling that was just, wow, this would make a really fancy page. You could have this guy's foot hanging out this side of the panel, and I'll put 3 or 4 extra panel borders, and some of the panel borders will have curly cues on them, and you go, that's fine, but it's not storytelling. The more weird stuff like that you do, the more it slows you down and draws attention to the fact that it's pictures, as opposed to it's images that are telling the story. So I'm big on the fancy stuff.
Who were you looking at mostly when you were kind of coming up and gaining a lot of your skill, especially black and white artists?
Well, what's interesting about that is one of the biggest, the single biggest influence on me, especially when I was young, was Frank Frazetta. I desperately wanted to be Frank Frazetta. I got an ulcer from not being Frank Frazetta. I was about 12. He was somewhere in his 40s or 50s. And at that is some kind of a freak genius. You know, he's just better than people. I'm a normal person. But at 12 years old, I couldn't figure out why I couldn't do what he does. So I worried about it a lot, and I studied his paintings as nobody's business. And, at first I did it because I like barbarian, that's cool. But little by little, well, actually I had somebody at the convention say, yeah, another thing he does is he spots black like crazy. So why don't you go back and look at those paintings and look at the way he handles dark and light stuff. And so I never studied his black and white art. Nothing against it, it's great. But he, as a former comics guy, thinks in simple dark and light shapes. There's a lot of beautiful pushing paint around in his stuff. He's great for mysterious areas that are kind of all in gray, and you partially see a face or a tentacle and stuff. Nobody does that better than him. But he also has extremely strong compositional dark and light shapes. So he became the biggest influence on me. Then I discovered Bernie Wrightson, and I wanted to be him for a couple of years. Then I got kind of confused and wanted to be a bunch of different people. So, 1 week I wanted to be Von Bodie, and 1 week I wanted to be Alex Toad. I never wanted to be Alex Toad. That's kind of funny. Not because I met him. But because I did until years later. I think I wanted to be Alex Nino for 8 hours. The great thing about it is I started studying a zillion different guys, and as a result, when you look at my stuff, one thing I think is cool is a lot of people go, who are your influences? You see a lot of guys and they go, oh, I see you're doing Rob Liefeld mixed with you're mixing Rob with Todd and with a little bit of that shiny way Jim Lee does a boot. And you go, oh yeah, I see what all that is. So unfortunate for you. But what you do is you get guys that are picking up style tricks. And the guys I was looking at could draw like nobody's business. And yeah, there are certain stylistic tricks. But painting, for the most part, isn't about tricks. It's about creating volume and shape and stuff like that. So if you're studying painters, you kind of, especially if you're studying a painter and you're translating stuff in black and white, you're kind of forced to come up with your own ways to interpret things. You get their sense of dark and light, but you've got to figure out, well, how do I translate that into lines? As opposed to studying somebody like Rob, where you go, okay, these 5 lines somehow represent a nose.